All right, welcome back, everybody. First off, I'd like to say congratulations to the Kansas City Chiefs for winning Super Bowl 58. They went back to back, first time since I believe the 04-05 Patriots. So good for them. Kind of sucks that I'm kind of getting tired of seeing them win, but I also can't be mad because they did the right way, drafted well, they have a great coach, blah blah blah. Pat Mahomes is a good guy, whatever. Good for them. Moving on, this is going to be my State of the Bay 2024 off-season edition. I try to do these every year. I believe I've done it the past 2 years. This is just kind of where things stand in Green Bay, kind of what's the status of the team, and what we can look forward to moving on. So I have some notes here. I broke it down into what we learned from this past regular season, and then what we can look forward to going into the 2024 regular season. So I'm going to start off with what we learned this season. The first thing I have is that Jordan Love is him. Jordan Love is the future. Jordan Love is a franchise quarterback for the next however long he wants to be the franchise quarterback, in my opinion. For sure, the next 10 years, if not more. Um, going into the season, there was a lot of criticism, a lot of people that were saying that he's a bust, that he's not going to be great. And for the first half of the season, it was kind of looking that way. The first two games against Chicago and Atlanta, he looked great. And then the following, like 6 or 7 games after that, was not great. The Packers started off 2-5, and then something happened in, I believe it was week 11, right around the Los Angeles Rams game. The Packers were 2-5. Actually, they went 2-6. I might have that wrong. I should have done the research. They were 2-5. They beat. Oh, come on. I have it right here. I should just use my notes. Two, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so the Packers were 4, 5. So the Packers were 2-5 going into the game against the Los Angeles Rams. They beat the Rams to make it 3-5. They would then lose against the Steelers next week, 3-6, and then from there, really it was against the Chargers, but I think it was even before then. I think it was the Los Angeles Rams game that we saw Jordan Love kind of flip a switch, and he showed flashes of his predecessor and his predecessor's predecessor. You look at film from the regular season and you just look at the footwork and just kind of the way that it looks, the way that Jordan Love is throwing the ball, his footwork. Um, it's really Rodgers esque, and Chris Collinsworth might say, "Oh, that was very Mahomey." It's kind of a blend of, I guess, of Rodgers and Mahomes. Just Jordan Love's ability to. There was one specific example in the Dallas game where Jordan Love was under pressure and he just kind of leans back and just flicks the ball. It's really quite wonderful to look at, but I'm rambling here. But basically, as the year went on, Jordan Love just got better and better, and I think it really started to turn against that LA game, and then especially 2 weeks later from that Chargers game for the rest of the season, we saw Jordan Love just take over and claim his spot as the next franchise quarterback for the Green Bay Packers. Another thing regarding the offensive side of the ball is that there is no clear wide receiver one on this team. And I think that's a good thing. I think the fact that Jordan Love, spreads the ball around to everyone, whether it be Romeo Doubs, Christian Watson, Dontavian Wicks, Jaden Reed. Towards the end of the season, we saw Bo Melton kind of take over. And then along with the two tight ends as well, Luke Musgrave and Tucker Kraft. The fact that there is no one person that the defense can focus on and take away that one target, the fact that there are, 3, 4, 5 playmakers on the field at a time for Jordan Love, not even counting Aaron Jones, who is also an amazing receiving back. It really opens up the offense and allows Matt LaFleur to scheme guys open, knowing that the defense isn't going to look to take away one particular person like a few years ago when we had Rodgers and Adams. All the defense had to do was just double team Adams, and you kind of took away most of the Packers' offense. Rodgers was really prone to only targeting Adams. And yeah, he was a great wide receiver, and they made it work some of the time, but not all the time. Whereas with this, you can throw one pass to Dobbs, and then you can throw to Wicks, then to Reed. You don't. target one person every single play. Love is able to go through his progressions 1-2-3, 1-2-3, and make a throw to whatever receiver is the best read. Again, I'm rambling, but I think it's a good thing that there are 4 or 5 different guys that Love is going to throw to, and he's not going to pinpoint one person that he's going to throw to all the time. And I think we'll see that in 2024. Some guys might, take that next step, and they might stand out a little bit more. Towards as the season went on, I saw Jaden Reed and Dontavian Wicks, the 2 rookies, really kind of take off, and then Romeo Doubs kind of got integrated into that a little bit more. Romeo Doubs kind of had started at the top, went down a little bit, and then he kind of came back up towards the end of the season. But he's in that mix as well. And Christian Watson had his moments too. I know Christian Watson, they're looking to kind of research what's going on with that hamstring. Why is he having issues with that? And I know that that's something he wants to work on this off season. So hopefully he figures out what's going on, whether that be a change in training, a change in diet, although I'm sure he's already got a great diet. Whatever he has to do to make sure that hamstring stays healthy over the course of a 17-game season. So, like I said, no clear wide receiver one. One might break out next year, but for now, I think it's a great thing. And then basically to summarize everything I've said so far is that the future is bright. The Packers finished the season 9-8. They snuck into the playoffs as a 7 seed. They went down to Dallas, and everyone was counting the Packers out. Everyone was expecting Dallas to win by like 24 points. Even I, a Packer fan, didn't have the Packers winning that game. I thought maybe it would be a little bit closer than what everyone else was saying, but Green Bay went down to Dallas in the wild card round as the last seed in the NFC, and they beat Dallas 48-32. They're the first 7 seed. I believe that was introduced in 2020 or 2021. I don't know. They're the first 7 seed to beat a number 2 seed in the playoffs, and they made history. And if it wasn't for a couple fateful plays, they would have beat San Francisco, and they would have played Detroit in the NFC Championship. And I firmly believe that if Green Bay beat San Francisco, that they'd be Super Bowl champions, because they beat Dallas and they beat Kansas City. Now I know Kansas City in the postseason is a whole different animal, and maybe the pressure would have got to Love, but I don't know. Who's to say? I think they would have had a great chance if they beat San Francisco, who they ultimately lost to 24-21 in the divisional round. Still, as a Packer fan, you can't be mad at how this season turned out. Especially looking at the results. You look at 9-8 and say, oh, okay, that's fine. It's barely above 500, but just the way that everything unfolded as the year went on. Jordan Love looked horrible, and then he looked decent, and then 3 weeks later, he's great. So, yeah, the future is bright. There is a lot to look forward to in Green Bay, and I'm excited as a Packer fan. I saw someone commented that the rebuild took all of about 2 months, and honestly, that's what it feels like. Brian Gutekunst deserves a lot of credit for putting this team together. He was criticized for it when they had Rodgers. Why didn't we draft a T. Higgins in 2020 to help win a Super Bowl or whatever? And that was probably the right criticism at the time, but looking back now in February of 2024, all of the moves that he made leading up to now have played out for the most part. And so, round of applause for Brian Gutekunst, general manager of the Green Bay Packers. I did write down some of the key player stats for this season. I'll probably just rifle through them real quick. I don't want to ramble on too much as it's already at 9 minutes in the video. But Jordan Love on the regular season, he completed 372 passes for out of 579 attempts for a completion percentage of 64.2, which is around average, a little bit above average, in my opinion. 4,159 yards, 32 touchdowns, and 11 interceptions, so pretty close to a 3-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio, which is pretty good. Aaron Jones was a leading rusher on the Green Bay Packers this past season. He had 142 carries for 656 yards, only 2 rushing touchdowns, but he did have 3 rushing touchdowns in the postseason game against Dallas. I just wanted to note that. He did split time with A.J. Dillon, who I believe had upper 500s in yardage. A.J. Dillon had a rushing touchdown of his own on a pretty similar amount of carries. Their stats were pretty similar this year. Jaden Reed ended up being the Packers' leading receiver. He had 64 receptions for 793 yards and 8 touchdowns. And I also had to throw Romeo Doubs in there as he had 59 receptions, 674 yards, and 8 touchdowns as well. So those two guys kind of led the way, and we had Dontavian Wicks, Christian Watson, and Bo Melton were all great as the season went on as well. They all had their moments. And then I also wrote down that Luke Musgrave and Tucker Kraft, who I've already mentioned, they make a great tight end pair. We'll probably see Josiah DeGuara be released in free agency, but having Musgrave and Kraft is a great pair. And then moving over to the defensive side of the ball, just a couple quick stats here as well before we get into the second half of what I'd like to do in this video. Quay Walker led the defense in tackles with 118 total, and Rashawn Gary led the team in sacks with 9, including 3 in the Thanksgiving game in Detroit. And it was a very emotional game for Rashawn Gary post-game in the locker room, as Ford Field is where he tore his ACL in the 2022 season, which caused him to miss the rest of the 2022 season. And I believe it was about 9 months removed from the injury when this game happened, 11 months, whatever it was. Again, I should have done more research. This is very informal, but long story short, Rashawn Gary was emotional in the post-game locker room meeting, I guess, if post-game in the locker room. I don't know. Really awesome for Rashawn Gary that he was able to have 3 sacks in a game against Detroit at the field where he tore his ACL the year prior. So I think that's a pretty great story. And then who led the team in interceptions? It was safety Rudy Ford, who had 2. I believe Jair Alexander had 1, Keyshawn Nixon had 1, and then Quay Walker had a pick 6 week 1 against Chicago, which was pretty awesome. And then a couple other odds and ends there, but you get into kind of the stats that are less and less important. But to kind of summarize this first half of the video, kind of my closing statements, if you will, this is a very balanced offense between having Aaron Jones running the ball and Jordan Love being able to spread the ball around to all the different receivers. It's a balanced offense that I believe will be even better in 2024. Now that Love has a confidence, we won't see kind of that first half of the year slump that he was in. Hopefully he's able to pick up right where he started, and he should have a great year. And then on the defensive side of the ball, this defense is going to have very high expectations to perform with all the talent that is on this team, and especially now that they brought in new defensive coordinator Jeff Hafley, who is the former head coach of Boston College, and he is known to have a very aggressive defensive style. He wants to play press man. He wants a little bit of a scheme change. In the recent years, the Packers have run a 3-4 defense with the 2 outside linebackers as pass rushers. Jeff Hafley, from what I'm hearing, he runs a 4-3 defense, so 4 down linemen, or it could be 2 down linemen with 2 outside linebackers, however he wants that to work. But he would run a 4-3 defense, which should be pretty interesting to see how that works with all the talent on this defense, as they're all used to the 3-4 that was run by Joe Barry and the predecessor Mike Pettin as well. So we'll see how he does there, but with the talent on the defense and the players on the defense wanting to be more aggressive, Jair Alexander was known to be kind of saying some things about Joe Barry not being aggressive, whatever. Hopefully the defense can come together under this new coordinator. They can be aggressive and they can play the brand of football that the defensive players want to play. That should be all of my rambling for what we learned this season. Now we move into what we can look forward to going into the 2024 season. Excuse me. Currently, I believe the NFL Combine is going on. There were some interviews going on. I saw a little bit of the Brian Gutekunst interview, what to do with David Bakhtiari, and I'll mention that. I have some numbers here that I'll probably wrap up with. But the Combine is basically like a big pro scouting day, and then the draft is not long after that. Free agency, I believe the negotiation period starts March 11th. I believe that's what I saw. So that is coming up pretty quick, as it is already February 27th. So about 2 weeks from now, we start negotiating free agents. I apologize for rambling. But yeah, here's what I have for the draft. Starting with the draft, the Packers have 5 top 100 picks in 2024, thanks to the trading of Aaron Rodgers to the New York Jets last season. So they picked up the Jets' second round pick in this upcoming draft because Rodgers did not play 65% of the snaps. As some of you may know, he tore his Achilles like 4 plays into the game. So yeah, that pick became a second round pick because it was a conditional pick. Um, what else? What else? Regarding free agency and talking about cap space, the NFL just announced a couple days ago that the salary cap for the 2024 season is going to be set at $255.4 million. And with that number and the restructuring of Rashawn Gary's extension that he signed this past season, they did restructure his deal, saved I think about $4.5 million. So as it stands right now at 228 on February 27th, the Green Bay Packers currently have around $7 million in cap space. Now, obviously, they're going to restructure more deals. They're going to have to make decisions on what players they let go, what players they want to keep. So that number will change. The biggest question of all is what are they going to do with All-Pro left tackle David Bakhtiari? The numbers here are the Packers will save $20 million against the salary cap this upcoming season if they cut him, but he will have a dead cap of $19 million. So it kind of helps and hurts either way, whether they keep him or let him go. If they keep him, I don't know. If you're going to pay all that money with a dead cap of $19 million, my opinion is that you should probably keep him because you're going to pay him that money is going to count against your cap either way. So you might as well keep him, even if you only get 4 games out of him this year. It's better than nothing, better than having that dead cap for nothing. But we'll see what Gutekunst wants to do. Maybe he lets him go, takes that salary cap savings and uses it this year to not only pay the draft picks, but bring other guys in, as they'll probably look to bring in a safety. If not, they'll draft some. But that's one of the biggest needs for the Packers this year. Yeah, the biggest question is David Bakhtiari. Keyshawn Nixon is also a key free agent. Jonathan Owens is a big free agent. John Runyon Jr., he is probably gone. Offensive guard, John Runyon. Who else do I have here? Rudy Ford, another safety. He is unrestricted free agent. Darnell Savage is a free agent. And A.J. Dillon is also a free agent. And the Packers, they're definitely not keeping all these guys. And honestly, I'd be surprised if they keep even 2 or 3 of these guys. If they do keep these guys, the number one guy I'd like to see the Packers keep is Keyshawn Nixon. Because of his return ability, kickoff return. We saw him great in 2022. He did pretty good in 2023 as well. But Keyshawn Nixon, I think he kind of brings that dog mentality to the defense in the secondary and on special teams as a return man. And then between Jonathan Owens and Darnell Savage, I hope the Packers can bring back at least one of those guys. Darnell Savage had a pretty okay regular season. His postseason was great. He had the pick 6 against Dallas and played pretty well. And then Jonathan Owens was just kind of that consistently average, slightly above average safety. I believe he started all the games, if not most of them. So between Savage and Owens, I'd like to see the Packers keep at least one of those guys. A.J. Dillon is probably gone. The Packers will probably draft a running back or 2 because I do have Emmanuel Wilson. I think he's on the practice squad. If not, he's on the roster. So he's a running back, a young running back the Packers can keep. And then I'm forgetting the other guy, but there was another guy that had a great preseason that I believe the Packers kept on the practice squad, also a running back. So A.J. Dillon is probably gone, which is unfortunate. I wish him the best in his future. Josh Nijman is another offensive tackle. He is kind of, he has been used as a starter. I think he was mostly a backup this year, but if the Packers can keep him on a team-friendly deal at a cap number where they're comfortable with it, I'd like to see them keep Josh Nijman, but he's not like a absolutely need to keep him. You can draft another lineman on a rookie scale contract, to keep that depth piece, but I'd like to see him back, but, if he leaves in free agency, if the Packers don't want to keep him, I'm not going to be too mad about it. But yeah, between Keyshawn Nixon, Darnell Savage, and Jonathan Owens, I'd like to see the Packers keep 2 out of those 3 with one of them for sure being Keyshawn Nixon. But of course, we'll see what happens. The draft is April, I believe, the 25th through the 27th. So, of course, I will have my Packers draft picks and my reaction to that. I try to do that every year as well. Going to be a pretty slow, about 2 months. There's really not a whole lot going on between now and the draft. If the Packers do make a big splash in free agency, a big name, I'll probably make a video on it. But they'll probably be pretty humble. It's probably just going to be more, guys that our team needs, guys that fit, what the Packers need. Safety, maybe another corner, maybe a running back if they let AJ Dillon go. But we'll see how all that plays out. That's all the notes I have for now. I don't want to keep rambling too much because I'm really bad at it, and I apologize. We're already at 21 minutes here. So if you stayed this long, thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you guys after the draft, where I'll have my draft analysis, if you will. I'm not a professional, but yeah, that's all I have for now. So hope you guys have a wonderful day, and I'll see you in the next one.